This transition and this disruption is led by economics. It is led by the change that is happening in the price of clean energy, because around the world, with every sort of clean energy we have, solar, wind, onshore, offshore, we have seen this incredible plunge in prices over the past decade, as these industries have grown from tiny to quite scalable and have been able to reinvest funds in R&D in this sector. And that is what is driving the transition globally.
This is all about the economics. I mean, this is all about the economics. Oil demand is going to peak 2020. And essentially, it's going to go down at about 100 million barrels per day, and it's going to go down to about 70 million barrels by 2030. So it's going to go down 30%. So a lot of the investments that are being made now in oil, gone, right? Which ones? Well, the expensive oil, because in oil, in the business, all you need, because it's so inelastic on both the demand and the supply side, essentially a 2 million barrel oversupply in the market, as we learned in 2014, can make the market crash, the prices crash. And that's going to happen as soon as 2021, assuming that autonomous vehicles are approved 2021. And the equilibrium price is going to be $25. So any oil that's produced that can't compete at 25, essentially, is unviable. Unviable, and it's going to be stranded.
Wind power will keep getting cheaper, and that has important ramifications. But of course, what you'd rather hear about is this. Because solar power makes wind power look slow and stagnant. If we look at just the cost of solar panels themselves per watt of power they produce, they have seen a staggering cost decline. It was $77 a watt in 1977 to buy a solar panel. Today, it's 22 cents. That's a 350 times cost decline. And this is physical infrastructure. This is the baseline resource that powers almost everything in our societies, in our industry, in our lives. But it's dropping in price almost like a digital resource. Right?
Batteries, just the cost curve going down. Essentially, you can map out over the next few years, assuming that it's going to continue at that rate, what markets it can disrupt. So again, the convergence for different markets happens at different times.
Ultimately, the biggest disruption is this. The oil industry, sometimes $2 trillion a year in just this one commodity. The peak of oil demand is coming. The European oil majors see it now. Total says in France it could happen by 2030. Equinor in Norway, formerly Statoil, says that sometime in the 2020s. Shell says in the next 5 to 15 years. How much of oil demand could we destroy? Passenger cars, trucks, lubricants, and we still use some electricity for building heat and electricity, or some oil. That will go away. That's 2/3 of the world's oil consumption at risk of disruption. Now, when will this happen? Here's the IEA's forecast. The IEA thinks oil demand will rise forever, more or less, but we know what their track record is. Bloomberg thinks it could happen as early as 2020. I think that's way too aggressive, actually. I think this will be one of those deceptive exponential curves, but it will happen in the coming 10 years, and I think in the next 5 years. And that could drive the price of oil down massively. If 1/3 of oil demand goes away, the price drops to 40. If half of oil demand goes away, the price drops to a little over 30 and stays there.